Hey everyone, it's Michael Fair from BIT here. I hope you're all well. Welcome to the next episode of Talking with Tech Leaders, where our Managing Director, Nikola Kelly, is chatting with Laura Casci, Head of Delivery at BJSS. Listen and enjoy.
Hi everyone, I am here today with Laura Casci, who is the Head of Delivery for Scotland for BJSS. Hi Laura, how are you?
Hi Nicola, I'm really well. Probably like everyone, just a little bit fed up about sitting in my dining room, but in general, pretty good.
I think we're sat here into our 10th month of restrictions, so I think it's fair to say that I think most people who will be listening to this might be feeling it the same as you and I. How have you been coping?
So probably like a lot of people who are in the lucky position, actually, by the way, of still being able to work from home and not having to be things like furloughed and things like that. Spending most of my time working. I have good and bad bits where I get very fed up, as I said, of my dining room. But and I go through phases where I'm really fit and healthy and trying to get out the house, and then other phases where I don't. But the reality is that you just have to get on with it, don't you? And that's how I'm coping. You have all these things that you need to do, whether it's work or home, and you just get on with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think most people that we have spoken to throughout the course of the last 10 months have had highs, lows, fitness streaks, lazy streaks, or not as active streaks at work where you've been super busy. And I know how much you work before this. So if you're saying that you're working even more now, I don't know where you're finding the time. But I think, when people have asked me how I've got through, work's been a welcome distraction. Like you say, it's almost a privilege because it's been such a focus and such a different focus to normal that you've had to adapt and be more agile to get our teams through. But no, well, we can touch on the sort of impact that the pandemic has had later on if that's okay. But I am really looking forward to this. We've known each other for a few years now, so I am really looking forward to digging a wee bit deeper and finding out a bit more about you, Laura. So if it's okay, maybe we could start off with your early career and even start with academia. So back to your sort of senior high school days, how did you end up in technology?
Oh, that's interesting. So I went to school in Glasgow. I went to a girls' school, actually, Laurel Bank School for girls. And it was quite an academic school, but I wasn't particularly academic. And I think part of that is that I just was one of these people who were always on the go. I love sports. That was more important to me. I guess, probably just didn't apply myself as much at school. I also, my dad died when I was at school, when I was about 13. So that kind of knocked my learning off track a little bit. Not because I went off the rails or anything, I certainly didn't. But it was just more the sort of impact of that. And, I was a bit of a daddy's girl, and that was pretty hard. Because of all of that, I left school with 2 hires. So, probably quite disappointed in myself because that wasn't pretty much what the other girls left with, 4 or 5 hires. In fact, I think there was a couple of girls from my school who went on to Oxford or Cambridge, and we only had a small class. So, it was a really academic school. And before I left, I actually told my headmistress, Miss Eggington, that I wanted to do hair and makeup. And she actually said to me, she pulled me into her office and said, girls from Laurel Bank don't go on to become hairdressers. Not that, the next Vidal Sassoon for anybody, that could have happened, but it didn't. And actually, I took her advice and I went to do an HND in Business Information Systems at the Scottish College of Textiles, which is now part of Heriot-Watt.
Yeah.
But the decision in terms of studying business information systems sounded to me like a good one. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but IT was kind of up and coming all those years ago, and I just thought a mixture of something that was kind of IT, computer science, with business seemed like a good shout. So that's really what happened. So I did my HND. Did pretty well in that, actually. Learning, it was a slightly different learning experience. It was less exams, more continuous assessment, and that really worked for me, which meant I got enough merits to get into a third year direct entry of a BA course in information management at Queen Margaret College in Edinburgh. So I moved to Edinburgh for the year, and at the end of that year, I decided to graduate rather than doing the honours year. You had to kind of wait a year and come back for the honours year the following year, and I wasn't prepared to do that. So I spent a year working in a pub in the West End of Glasgow, applying for jobs. I had a little bit of experience of working in pubs and bars before that. In fact, my dad was a restaurateur, so it just seemed like the natural thing to do. And interestingly enough, I had a decision after that year. Do I go and do a postgrad in IT at Paisley, or do I join the police force? Because I was accepted to join. And I made the decision to go and do my master's or postgrad in IT, and didn't join the police force. Partly because actually my mother wasn't really keen on me joining the police force. It wasn't that she didn't think I could do it. It was more she felt that it would be a job where I would see horrible things. And she felt that, maybe that would be quite hard for me. I'm quite, I come across quite hard, but I'm a big softie, really. So I went and did my master's in IT, and honestly, best decision I ever made. I guess the learning from that, from particularly younger people who are deciding on their careers at the moment, is that, if you don't get all your exams that you wanted, look for different routes. Doing an HND into degree, into a postgrad, it was just really as fast as anybody else doing their sort of honours degree and then postgrad, and I got the same out of it.
What's been refreshing from our series of podcasts that we've been doing over the last few months, Laura, is that you're not the first senior tech leader in Scotland to say that. And it's actually really refreshing to hear, because I think there's so much pressure on young adults from so many different avenues to get it right first time. Well, look at the year that we've just had. The young adults that have went into their first year of university, 2021 academic year, haven't had the experience that they probably expected, and it's a real shame, but that is refreshing to hear. Something you touched on there, Laura, is that you responded well to the environment in your HND and the more continual learning. Is that something that you recognise quite early, or upon reflection after you graduated?
No, I think I recognised that quite early. I was never particularly good at exams, partly not because I didn't know the stuff. I was, a bundle of energy who didn't want to sit down and study. And I see that in my own niece and nephew as well. I think it's just their character. But that doesn't mean to say that I wasn't capable, and actually doing the work, and demonstrating that over a period of time, rather than it being something, oh my goodness, I have to remember something I did 9 months ago, was just a much better way for me to work. And even now I learn by little short learning pieces, rather than going to do lots of studying. And I get approached a lot about doing things like MBAs and things like that, and I have actually been put off by doing that because of the amount of studying.
Do you know, that's hopefully an encouraging message for any young adults that are listening, but also maybe any parents, Laura, because there are a lot of parents just now, I think, quite concerned over the impact that undoubtedly COVID has had on education this year, and the decisions that the government's had to make in terms of it being based on a longer period of time as opposed to a 2 to 3 hour class exam. And then when you completed your postgrad, where did you go from there?
So I actually went to work for a training company. I had decided at that point that I hated coding, and I never wanted to be a developer or work in that environment. I think probably again to do with my personality. I think some people are great at sitting at a laptop going, right, I'm going to solve this problem, and I'm happy writing code whatever language that is. And actually, I think I'm much more of a social butterfly. I don't like to be at my laptop all the time, and I think I found myself better when I was talking to people. So I went in to work for a training company, and it was actually they trained in construction, so quite a different thing.
Wow.
So scaffolding, general building, painting and decorating. But I did a mixture of sort of administration, quality management, and actually training people on literacy and numeracy. I wasn't training people to do how to put scaffolding up.
So that was my next question.
So that was a really great grounding, actually. But after 3 years in that job, I felt that the environment was quite toxic, and I actually had a bit of an argument with my boss, not something I do normally, and basically said to her, I'm really not happy with the way you've treated these people, so I'm leaving, and I haven't got a job yet.
Someone else.
Oh, absolutely. So I think I'm quite a nice person, and if I see other people being treated badly, I don't like it. And I'm more than happy to be brave enough to say I don't like it. And I just wasn't happy, and I wasn't happy with the way people were treated. And I said, look, I'll have a job within the next month, and then I'll hand my notice in. And I made that quite clear. And I was so lucky, because I got one offer to join a company called ICE Integration, who were a testing SME business. Yeah. And they took me on the basis that all the quality management experience I received at the training company I would bring that knowledge and skills combined with my IT skills from my postgraduate, even though I didn't have any sort of real world, development or testing experience. They went, no, that's fine. You'll be perfect for our organisation as long as you help us with the quality stuff. And the absolute best move ever made. I loved working at ICE Integration. I actually stayed there 12 years, and just great people, learned so much. Had a huge amount of imposter syndrome while I was there, because I was working with all these amazingly bright, talented people. But
and just touching on the imposter syndrome, Laura, how did you manage that?
So I think there's a couple of things. When I first joined IS Integration, I phoned my mum up that first week and said, I don't know if I can work here. All these people are really posh, and they're really okay. I don't know if I'm going to fit in. And she kind of went, don't be daft. Got over everything the way that I get over everything, which is to focus and work really hard and build my credibility just like everybody else did. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one that felt I wasn't good enough to be there. But I'd went from working in a training company where it was, pretty blue collar working environment to this more corporate environment. And I think that was the challenge for me. But a big part of it was the not just working hard, it was the playing hard, Nicola, in those days as well. I hate to admit it, but we did a lot of partying and a lot of drinking as well.
As a seasoned recruiter, I feel your pain. I've been brought up on the professional work hard, play hard culture. But great. So IS Integration, obviously, a big testing consultancy. You spent a big part of your career focusing in on test. So that's where that started. And thereafter, you progressed into sort of more senior roles, still siloed within test. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, when I left, it was then known as App Labs. IS Integration got bought over by App Labs. I went to Barclays Wealth for a very short period of time, permanent. But I knew in my heart that I was a consultant, really, and actually, the thought of being in the same office forever really scared the living daylights out of me. So I went to join another consultancy called Certical, but again, they had a focus on testing, business analysis, and project management and program management at the time. So yes, I was still focusing on testing at that point. I was delivering a big transformation project from a testing perspective at one of the financial services, one of our financial services clients in Scotland. But during that time, I also took responsibility for what they called the governance area of Certico, which was effectively PMO, project management, program management, and I became head of that division because a lot of the skills are quite transferable. Test management and program management, it's a lot of budgeting, there's a lot of forecasting, there's a lot of stakeholder management, all of those kind of good things. So I became responsible for that particular area as well. So that's really when I started to diversify out. The other thing that had already happened at IS Integration was I'm quite a sales focused consultant. So I'd started to do more pre-sales. So I'd started to broaden out my career. I wasn't just a test manager at that point or a test program manager. I did a bit of everything. And I think that's one of the things that enabled me to branch out to do other things going forward from there, which is when people were interviewing me, they could see that I didn't just focus on one thing. I had experience and skills in all these other aspects, which meant actually, even if I wasn't an expert in DevOps, for instance, at BJSS, we do a lot of AWS and Azure work. I had the ability to learn something new, and my skills were all very transferable.
So in addition to that ability to learn something new, early on in our conversation, I think you referred to yourself as more of a social butterfly and not someone that was happy to be sat at your laptop all day long. Does that maybe help with that stakeholder management, that pre-sales part of the role that you kind of grew into and were more comfortable with? Because not everyone is comfortable in both doing the really technical side of the role as well as that pre-sales and very new stakeholder management piece. So it sounds like that really complemented, those skills complemented each other.
Yeah, I've always loved the pre-sales aspect of dealing with clients, partly because you promise so much to a client and you want to make sure you deliver that. And if you just leave that to the sales guys, they'll overcommit, they'll overpromise, or they'll tell the client something that is just not possible. I would rather
what they want to hear.
Absolutely. I would rather be open and honest with the client up front about what is possible and what we can do. Sorry, all salespeople, that's harsh, I know, but it's I think having a good combination of sales and technical capability in those meetings is a good thing, because ultimately I then had to go and deliver some of those projects, and it just put me in a good footing for delivering those projects. But part of it was the social aspect of it as well, which is getting out and about and meeting new people, and learning about new clients and how clients did things. Because one of the big takeaways that I've always taken in my career, as a consultant, you go into lots of organizations, and things that work for one organization do not work for another. And I think that's a really important lesson. And the more clients I dealt with, I felt I had more tools in my toolbox to deal with the different challenges, or the way those challenges impact those clients differently.
That almost a canteen box of solutions that you delivered for different types of companies that you could pick and mix and put together as a solution for one. And I can't agree with you more from the sort of sales perspective, Laura. I'm very like you in that way, that I love the engagement with new clients. I love the keeping in touch and communication with our current clients. But I'm also very well aware that we're a service firm too, and if we don't deliver, then those clients won't want to speak to me for much longer. So it's all about managing expectations from the start, and sometimes having frank and bold conversations, and sometimes telling a client maybe no. The easier thing is to tell them what they want to hear, and yeah, we can get you that, and we can get you it yesterday, and but no, that is unusual, and I think as well, my experience in technology, that there are different opportunities for people now. There's opportunities for people to move into senior roles in businesses and focus just on the tech, whereas I think previously some people that weren't as comfortable with the pre-sales element or weren't as comfortable with the stakeholder management piece, in order to progress their career, were almost put in those roles because they weren't the sort of senior tech roles that sat alongside. And it's good to see now that I suppose there's much more scope, isn't there, with technology, that there are options for people.
Absolutely, and I think that's the great thing about, so I'm at BJSS now, and I know I've skipped past through some of my career, but that's the great thing about working at BJSS. So whilst I am in a senior role, and I have a varied role, but I'm still working across tech. I do other things. At BJSS, nobody needs to be anything that they don't want to be. If they want just to focus on being a great developer or a great technical architect, they can still work their way and get more recognition for that at BJSS, whether that's salary or anything else, just by being great at what they do and what they want to do. Nobody's forced to be a manager or a line manager or a squad lead. It's about what you want to do and what value you can bring to the company. So I think you're right. There is more technical roles here. But maybe, in the past, the fact that there wasn't those pure play technical roles probably helped somebody like me, who wasn't as technical as some of the people, but had those kind of wider communication skills.
The additional softer skills to complement the technical skills. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And obviously a lot of you touched on delivery. That's obviously a big focus for BJSS too. I think the way that you guys position yourself in the market is not only in your ability to deliver for clients, but also the way in which you deliver. And I think that's referenced in your Agile Enterprise. Yeah,
so BJSS issued in, I think it was 2003 or something, we issued our first, I should probably know that off by heart, our first edition of our Enterprise Agile book, which was really, it was about taking Agile ways of working so the client can get value early, so things are implemented in production and their customers are using it, but trying to do that in an enterprise way where there's regulation and there's criteria that you've got to meet in order to deliver into production. So I think BJSS were well ahead of the game when they started looking at Agile, and as a result of that, we've delivered major programs using Agile. Even though I know people out there that go, you can't. That's just not possible. Actually, I've seen it in work. You can deliver a large-scale digital transformation using an enterprise agile model, absolutely no problem whatsoever. And I probably had that hesitancy when I joined BJSS as well, because I'd seen agile work so poorly in previous organisations. But that's been great. So, but our agile isn't just about having a book. It's about a means to an end. It's about getting value for those customers early, and making sure putting things into production to give them a competitive advantage or whatever it may be that they're trying to achieve. But that's just part of the way we work in BJSS. I mean, and another big thing is the quality of our delivery. A client once told us what they liked about BJSS, or told me what they liked about BJSS, was that we didn't come across like other consultancy companies, that we came across like real technologists at heart. And that was a lovely compliment to hear from a client, that that made us just have that uniqueness or that extra selling point, whatever you want to call it. What a lovely thing for somebody to say.
That's really positive. And in terms of delivery, Laura, with you having so much experience in program and project delivery before joining BJSS and that being such a focus, did that marry up, or did you find a new way of working when you joined BJSS, or was it quite an easy transition for you to take on the head of delivery role?
So my head of delivery role I see as kind of threefold at BJSS. It's one, to hire great people, to do delivery.
Mm-hmm.
It's one to make sure we deliver quality to our clients and we meet our clients' expectations. And the last one is to make sure we run a sustainable business in Scotland and a profitable one. And I am a great believer that if all of those things are in place, then you'll if you get great people and you have the right process to support those people, you'll get all those other things. They come along naturally. And that's always been my view. So actually joining BJSS from that perspective wasn't really any different. It's getting great people, having those around you, making sure they're in the right roles. And if you do that, you can deliver anything. I guess the big challenge for me at BJSS was, most of my on-site delivery experience was around testing delivery rather than project experience. So when I joined BJSS, we had a major programme of work in the public sector where we had a team of 100. I did have to get across a much wider range of skills. I wasn't an expert on AWS or DevOps. I'm still not, but I have a much better knowledge of those things now. I hadn't worked that closely with development teams the way I have to do at BJSS. But actually, the skills I had previously enabled me to do that job. And as I say, a lot of it is just transferable. So, if you're a good delivery manager, whether in test or development, actually you can apply those skills to pretty much anything, I think.
Both. And recognising that, I suppose, as a service business, you're only as good as the people that you have, and you're only as good as the team behind you. Moving on to, I suppose, the year that we've had, I'm keen to get your thoughts on the impact that the pandemic has had on the market, both from a technology perspective and the demand in the market, and also what your views are on the impact that COVID-19 has had moving forward. So I suppose, how do you feel the tech community has reacted?
So I can only really speak for BJSS and the interactions I've had. So I can't speak for the whole tech community. I feel that we as a business have reacted really, really well. We are busier than ever. We're doing, more work for our clients. We're hiring at the moment. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that BJSS, we have a number of service lines, areas that we do business in. We're not just, a company that does work in finance. We're not just a company that does work in public sector. We do work in finance, public sector, commodities, sort of energy sector, retail, technology, media. And I think because of that, whilst I think some clients did reduce what their demand was, others raised their demand. So having that broad base of organisation types that we do work for really helped us as a business. That wasn't my doing. Yeah. That's BJSS board and everything, all the good things that they do to make sure we had diversity. But I think that really helped us. I think the other thing is that really helped organisations like ourselves is that we do a lot of work in the likes of NHS and social care, and you can imagine that the need for that type of work has really grown as well during the pandemic, which again is helped us as a business. But I think the main thing is that, and this comes back down to the point you made about teams earlier on, is that the whole of the BJSS teams have just delivered amazingly over the pandemic. And actually in some cases, because we obviously measure things like velocity, etc., in terms of delivery, the teams are exceeding and increased their delivery velocity because they're not having to do the travel to work every day, and actually they're spending that time doing more work. Now, maybe that's because there isn't much else to do, but like we talked about earlier on, Nicola. But I think it's a combination of things for us that we've seen, having a balanced type of work, having a great team that can just work remotely. All of those things have led to it being a good year for us in terms of the amount of work coming through. I guess the biggest challenge, though, for the teams, and I'm very conscious of this, and BJSS have done a lot of things that people might have seen on LinkedIn to try and keep the teams happier, is, my teams are missing that social aspect of being at work really badly. I have people who live alone. I have people with underlying health conditions. I have people that just really like the fact that the culture in BJSS was quite sociable. And I think people are struggling with not getting into the office, not seeing their colleagues and friends, in some cases, and missing going for drinks on a Friday. And whilst we've done lots of things, like we have Friday beers, we have regular tea breaks where we can have a coffee together. We've done really nice things. We've had wine tasting events and cocktail making events and things like that. It's not the same as seeing people face to face.
I agree, and that's something that we've struggled with too. And I actually think it's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of companies will have, depending on what they commit to their employees regarding working from home. We have made a commercial decision for our own business that we're now going to be a work from home more than you're in the office model, and give a lot more flexibility to our staff in order to encourage a better work-life balance. It's about, I think, giving them the flexibility. But we always hired on capability, and we hired on what value can someone new bring to us at BIT. But a key element for me was our culture. We have a very strong culture, and would our culture be right for that new person joining our business? But for when we do sort of a 3-month interview with a new start, 9 out of 10 times the feedback that I would get is that we told them about the culture. We told them that we are a fun place to work, that we do work hard, we're very productive, but we have a really good time while we do it. But that culture was bred in the office, and that culture was bred when we were all together. And it was sometimes bred in the pub on a Friday night after we'd had a tough week, having a pint together, or going for a coffee with a colleague at 2:30 in the afternoon because we'd hit a brick wall. And truthfully, that's something that I'm struggling still to get my head around, as to how I continue to build the BIT team with what still is a very strong culture, but we're not all together yet.
And it's amazing because we've hired an awful lot of people in Scotland and in the wider BJSS over the last 9 months. I think I have maybe got 20 or 30 people working for me that I've not actually met face to face. Obviously, I've met them on Zoom, and I've met them on, but again, an amazing, great kudos to them, because the BJSS and the IT teams at BJSS and the operations teams have made that onboarding process really smooth, which is great. But those people have really, came on board, and dealt with those challenges and delivered to our customers.
That's amazing, Laura.
We've never met in person the people that they're working with. I just think amazing achievement. And that's partly of that is the existing staff making those people feel really welcome as well, right? It's not just the new staff. On the home working front, it is interesting because we're a client-led business, and some of our clients will still want people in future on site 5 days a week. And that's going to be a difficult one, because a lot of our staff, whilst they don't necessarily want to be at home 5 days a week, they possibly now don't want to be on site 5 days a week and having to do a commute from Glasgow to Edinburgh as well, especially when they've proven that they can work remotely and do a really good job. And that will be an interesting one as we go forward. I think there's always been a view from clients, if they can't see people on site working 5 days a week, that people are not working as hard as they should be. I think the metrics that we've got around velocity prove that that's not the case. It's actually quite the opposite. And it would be great if some of our clients could be more flexible moving forward, so that they get the best people. One of the great things about working remotely is some of my staff now are working in projects that are based in England, and some of the English team are now working in Scottish projects because they don't need to be on site. And what that's allowed us to do is fulfill client requirements without the constraint of location, which meant they get a better team and they get a more available team, i.e., the best person for them might not be available until 4 weeks' time. If we limit it to location, but maybe they can get the best person tomorrow if we don't limit it to location. So I think there's been real benefits for clients, but whether they recognise that as we move forward will be really interesting.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, Laura. I think the world has moved on to much more of an outcomes-based model, and less about that. You have to see someone in the office 9 to 5 to ensure that they're doing a job for you. Again, this might be a bold statement, but from the surveys and the information that we've gathered is that employees are going to be looking for a degree of flexibility. It's in our build to want to see people and interact people all at different levels. But people, I think, have like you say, they've proven that they can do a job fully remote for such a long period of time, and achieve the outcomes. That there is a risk that firms that won't be open to it might be left behind, or may not have the like you say, the choice of the entire market or the top end of the market. Technology professionals have been telling us for years that they would like to work from home. They've known for a long time, being cloud-based now, that they can work remotely. And I think this has obviously pushed us. What everyone seems to want is a balance. It will be interesting to see. There's also that wee bit at the back of my mind that obviously, touch wood, there's a vaccine on the way and there's light at the end of the tunnel. And this time next year, do we forget about this? Do we forget that we weren't in our offices for a year, that we all work from home, and are there some businesses that just go straight back to the way we were?
I mean, I do think that my biggest, always got lots of worries, but one of my worries is that if all our clients instantly go to, they want everybody on site 5 days a week, well, whilst it's doable, what kind of impact that will have on my staff attrition and retention, because other organisations will offer those benefits.
I think we also need to be mindful of people's varying levels of comfort in terms of how comfortable they actually are in going back into an office full stop, vaccine or not. And I think that has to be respected. It's tough to go from distancing and wearing masks and not seeing anyone for months and months to back into an office of 40 people.
Absolutely, especially if people are really adversely impacted by COVID, and have lost loved ones, or their loved ones have been really ill. I can imagine that getting back and mixing with people would be quite different.
Yeah, I suppose the light at the end of the tunnel is the vaccine. My 84-year-old gran got her vaccine yesterday, and that was quite a big day for us in the family, because we've been keeping her in our own wee bubble. And in terms of the impact, just sort of my last question on COVID, if you don't mind, Laura, do you see any other long-term changes that will come from the pandemic?
I do. If you look at public sector and maybe even places like the banks, and businesses that have been impacted by the whole COVID thing quite badly in terms of the revenue they're bringing in. From a tech perspective, what I do see is we'll see more requests for, I think, things like RPA or automation, hyper automation, to take out the manual processes in some of the tasks that they have, whether it's back office or front office tasks. I think businesses will have to become more streamlined and efficient. They'll need to understand their data better so they can make the most of the business data to understand what they need to do as an organisation. And we're already seeing that. We're seeing a lot more requests at BJSS for those types of services, as I think, as we move forward. So that'll be interesting to see what that does in terms of will organisations then reuse some of those staff that potentially their jobs will partly be taken up by automation or
Yep.
That's a whole moral AI kind of and automation kind of issue, which we probably don't have a whole load of time to go into today.
I think you are right, but I think we would be here for hours, wouldn't we, if we get into the automation versus the workforce. But no, I think you make a really good point. The demand that we have seen, we're always very busy looking for you guys and for our other clients, for software developers and testers and project managers and business analysts. We've seen a massive hike in the demand for anything relative to DevOps. Good data skills have been in demand for a number of years, but we have also witnessed that demand for good data professionals to help companies get better again at utilising their data. And the third area that we've seen an increase for is an obvious one, but cyber, just with everyone working from home, just to ensure that all the estates are secure. But it's been an interesting time. So now on to the fun bit, Laura. A few personal questions about you. So I suppose maybe just to start with, I suppose I'm interested to hear on what drives you now, Laura, or has that, what drives you now, and has that changed over the years?
Has it changed? Well, so what drives me now really is I like to do a good job. Whoever I'm working for, whoever my clients, and that kind of recognition of actually doing a good job is really quite important to me. Although I don't need a pat in the back all the time, just for somebody to say I'm not doing a bad job is actually quite important. But I think the thing that generally drives me, if you look at it from a career perspective, is I just like security, and that probably hasn't changed. The fact that I spent 12 years working for IS Integration / App Labs, and I haven't really had that many jobs. I've been really lucky because I've managed to progress in the companies I've been in. So I think security from a career perspective is really quite important to me. So a combination of security and being recognised for a good job and getting the opportunity to do a good job.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose on that basis, what would you tell your younger self?
What would I tell myself? She probably wouldn't listen. That would be the problem. Because she thought she knew best. There's a couple of things. One is that, look, I know I worked too hard, Nicola, and whilst that's probably got me to this position. I know I'm not, First Minister of Scotland, but I feel like I've done okay in my career. I have probably sacrificed other things for that, and that's all okay. But I would say, maybe look after your health a bit better. You don't, cancel those family or friend commitments because you've got a big bid on the go. So it's a balance, isn't it? It's finding more of a balance is what I would probably say to myself.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, especially after this year. You can't work as hard as you do if you don't love what you do, and that's probably why it's easy for you to fall into the working really hard camp, because you love what you do. But there are lots of people around you and I as well that love us and want our attention and want some of our time. But yeah, I think for me this year's put that into perspective more so than ever. And I suppose if you had one tip for making the world a better place, Laura, what would that be?
I think that's really easy, and I think sometimes we forget to be nice. It's interesting. I've and that's both in a professional environment and in a normal environment. My poor other half probably gets very abrupt answers sometimes than actually what he deserves, because I'm busy looking at my laptop and he's asking me a question and I'm focusing on my laptop a bit more. But just be nice and be kind and just treat people the way you expect to be treated, I think is the most important thing. And on a client perspective, I think sometimes because clients have very high expectations about what they want from a supplier, is they forget that actually and I'm not having a go at any of my clients, I'm really not, they forget that they are dealing with people at the other side. And we should never forget that. And it's the same with, us and supplier and clients as well. We get frustrated with them sometimes. We feel that maybe they're making the wrong decisions, and we've got to remember that we've got to treat them nicely because they're our clients. But also, that's the right thing to be doing. Just be nice, be kind, and that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. No, I can't agree more, and that is a very positive and a lovely message for us to finish on. So thank you so much, Laura. It has been a pleasure.
Thanks, Nikola.
Thanks, Laura. Bye.
Well, everyone, that was our latest episode of Talking with Tech Leaders, and that was Laura Casci, Head of Delivery for Scotland at BJSS. As always, if you're looking for a new job in IT, you can reach out to one of the guys at BIT, or if you're looking to build a team, then please do reach out to one of the team as well. Have a great week. Thanks.